How about DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency? Is that something that you think can move the needle? I mean, you've been outspoken about how our wasteful government spends too much money, runs wartime deficits in a time of really economic prosperity. So what do you think about that?
Look, I think if Elon Musk gets in there and he's like made the head of efficiency for the government, the question is how much power is he going to have? So he'll have the authority to do what? Mm-hmm. So because one of the things that people don't talk about right now is the power that the deep state has, right? The deep state is just the big pockets who control politicians.
Come on, Jason, the deep state does not exist.
my interaction in D.C., which is which is a decent amount at this point, is that politicians, first and foremost, are looking out for their own best interest. It's what I said earlier. They want to enrich themselves politically and financially. They are. So the issue is like when Boeing is coming and meeting before a committee, is that politician, if they're on whatever committee they're on, energy, are they actually interviewing for their next job? Right? So what kind of perks are their relatives getting? So then they're going to poll their constituents. And if their constituents, if they think it's going to make them become unelected, then it's going to change how they vote. So it was frustrating for me, the conversations I had with several of the people in D.C. who had to go take a poll to see if they were for the thing. They couldn't just say whether it was right or wrong inherently. They had to go take a poll to see if it was a big enough issue that it would affect them in the next election. And I just want to say that I think an exception to that's Utah's Senator Mike Lee. So like he's very inspirational to me. And I've seen him make decisions that were extremely ethical. And that's I saw him do it before I ran too. And I thought, wow, that was the first time I had an epiphany that said, you could be in public office and be honorable. And I think he's that way. But so again, the question, your question was, do I think it would work? It depends how much authority they have.
Sure.
The other way the deep state controls things is through the administrative state. So one of the big mistakes that I think people talk about is they talk about term limiting members of the House and Senate at the federal level. But nobody talks about term limiting all the administrators. So I've talked to members of the House that were working on bills that they didn't, U.S. House, that they didn't realize that there was some woman on some committee that was a gatekeeper, and because they didn't even know that for a year and a half into their 2-year term, that they just couldn't get any traction. And so it's a powerful thing for the deep state or for whoever's in political power to control the administrative state. Because think about that. If I run out the laws that were passed by the U.S. House of Representatives and passed by the Senate and signed into law by the president, it's going to be a stack of paper that's about, 10 to 12 inches high. But if I get out the Federal Register, those are regulations that have the binding effect of law that were just enacted by some unelected bureaucrat that you didn't elect, you don't know their name, and they can have their position forever. Just for last year, it'd be 10 to 12 feet high. So that means somebody can sit around with a firearm, let's say, and say, you know what? If your weapon that you already own, if it has a couple of these things on it, it's a felony. And now you would go to prison and be a felon for the rest of your life. For someone that you didn't elect, my memory is we fought the Revolutionary War over that. So I think it's just despicable that we've allowed unelected people to actually be making our laws in the form of regulations and pretending like it's something else. And so there's such a deep power behind it that when you say, could this Office of Efficiency work, then I would come back, the business mind in me comes back and says, how much authority do they have? How much money do they have to market those efficiencies? Because you know that fake media and other other sources are going to be marketing against it. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be, how far can you push the political pendulum to make spineless career politicians, fear for their jobs? And that's really, unfortunately, what I saw a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I'm for that. I'm for the efficiency. I'm for a reduction of waste.
Me too.
But what I do worry about in that balance is, given how much fiscal stimulus that the government is currently pumping out in order to prop up the economy through, of course, the Inflation Reduction Act, which we know is not so aptly named, whether that's also the CHIPS Act or the Infrastructure Act. But there is that worry that if they did pull back, to a certain degree, then it could actually slow the economy to a point that isn't necessarily healthy, going forward. But adjustments need to be made, clearly.
Well, Nate, so here we've come to it. So, why are you letting a private bank artificially inflate the economy and control everything that way? Why is that the case? Shouldn't it be normal that sometimes in economic cycles that you have downturns? So in 2006, 2008, when the federal government dished out however many $100 billion in stimulus, so what did that do? It taught people that you can do criminal things and make bad decisions and not pay the consequences for it. It's what I said earlier. How about we match the consequences and the incentives so that they match? What about the whole generation of people from that era that also see that there aren't consequences for what you do? I think it would have been much healthier for America if we suffered a little bit and felt
it's the cleansing that capitalism provides.
You need to feel the consequences because you're going to pay the piper at some point. So I'm not afraid of the country going through economic cycles and having a rough time. I think it's healthy, and I think in the long run, it's in everyone's best interest. It's just so easy for someone to come in behind me and say, "Did you hear what Walton said? He's okay for the bad times." I'm saying that it is healthy to have normal economic-driven cycles.
Sure.
It's healthy, and it makes you make better long-term decisions for people, for families, for businesses, and for countries. And when you don't do that, then I think that you're actually planning for some dark days.
I think the example that you're providing during the global financial crisis, when you had those bailouts, when you had that money printing, I think that actually sowed the seeds for the younger generation's distrust in capitalism, because that's not capitalism, right? And so what that does is it allows the wealth gap and wealth inequality to actually widen, because the people who would have been removed from their assets at that point are the wealthy asset holders, right? And so it's very anti-capitalism, but it's caused this distrust, I think.
Yeah, you know what? This is why now that my campaign's over, it's fun to jump back into our industry, because I'm telling you, this is the pulse and the heartbeat of the United States of America. It does not get better. If I had to do my career all over, I would do the exact same thing. It is the service industry, the pest control industry in general, to me, is honorable and as pure and as a noble profession as you can have. Yeah, I think look what we were doing as an industry, why the country was going through turmoil, and we are literally the pulse of the United States.